I had a nice little Easter weekend. I hope other people did too. Hope everybody's been well, especially Kostya since he's at a tournament. We're going to find out how he's been doing in a moment here. The question on everybody's mind, Stefkich. Yes, we'll find out in a second. This is his live position for the 9th round game. He just played knight c3 as white. And I guess he had an extra knight on d7, but it had no way out. That's a crazy position. Clicking on his name, it's telling me that he has a score of 2.5 out of 5, but it's not showing all of his games. So give me a second, or maybe we may be joined here in a moment. By Dr. Kraai. So I see 2.5 out of 5 plus maybe 3 games. It's not showing me. 5th round, 6th round, and 8th round. So I guess score-wise, he's not going to be pumped about his score so far, I guess. Now somebody who might be pumped about their score is Magnus Carlsen. Let's see if we can find his game and put it in the corner here. Magnus Carlsen has 8 out of 8. And is currently playing white against Vincent Keimer. In a very interesting, complicated position. White's bishop on b1 has some issues. Other than that, white would be much better here structurally. But Vincent's got the pieces to challenge the knight and has the rook here. He's got tactical juice with like bishop takes e3 or knight takes e4, queen g4, h5. So actually the position might be super messy over there. Let's add Kostya's score to this, even though we don't know exactly. We'll go with this format somebody told me. 2 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. Put that here. He did win the bishop pair ending, Stefkich. Yes, that was a glorious game for sure. So let me try and add my human eval bar here real quick. Yeah, that just clicked into place. Very nice. All right, so we have, I think, successfully a broadcast in front of us now. So that's a good start here. Let's have a look at the position he's got, since it looks super crazy and interesting. And then potentially we could even look at Magnus's position, which also looks super interesting and crazy. And yeah, let's see. So it's Kostya's move here. One move on the horizon would be rook takes a7, right, Stefkich? That would win back a pawn that white's currently down 1 pawn. Okay, I'll just tell you my first impression without even calculating a single move. Just for fun, let's do this. That's just a complete guess. I would guess that somehow Kostya's position is just sort of on the borderline of winning here. What makes me think that? Two factors. The exposed king. Can I get a highlight? Chess.com? Yes. And the unopposed light squared bishop. Now, queens are off the board, but I still think there are enough pieces on the board that king on c8 is a dramatic liability. And secondarily, Kostya's got the bishop pair. The bishop pair is one thing. It's all well and good, right? But this is more than just an average bishop pair, right? Specifically, the unopposed bishop has just tremendous diagonals available all over the board. So it is a really, really strong piece here. Very, very high chances of prosecuting White's advantage successfully here. Now, Stefkic is asking, is going for the exchange good here, which I assume means bishop h3. And Stefkic, if bishop h3, f5, Kostya takes the pawn that I would have taken. If instead we imagine bishop h3, f5, is that a little bit complicated, or is it a very clear calculation you've already done with e3 coming?
It's here. La, la, la.
Hey, boss.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, very good now that I hear your la-la-las.
Well, when I looked earlier, Kostya had a nice opening.
Yeah.
It's probably going to show me the frickin' thing.
The evaluation.
The first moment I look, but I get rid of it. It's so hard to find. There's so many people in this tournament, so you have to keep scrolling. How was your trip, dude? You did a little thing with the kids or something?
Yeah, we did a tiny little trip with the kids. Yeah, Stefkic, I think that's a lot simpler to calculate. Knight e6, as you say, and then there's no exchange for white. So it makes a lot of sense what Kostya went for with rook a7. The trip was okay. It's always an effort to herd kids around.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a pretty good time.
So I got in without seeing the analysis.
Nice.
That was good. Did you guys go to the mountains? What'd you do?
We went to Santa Rosa.
Mm-hmm.
Basically an hour to the north. A little super old school resort.
Okay.
So the idea was, hang out by the pool for a day. The kids swam a whole bunch, and I, participated, carried the baby around and stuff.
That's where Peanuts is from.
Yes.
Okay, so I felt that a3 was a really good move 7, a3. He doesn't seem like it was known to him because he thought for like 10 minutes. And I thought that was a pretty cool, at least it puts good pressure on black. Because I've seen that, I've dealt with that position before, and the old school people basically had the sense that was an equal position. So I'm sure a3, if we look in the database, there'll be some games. But Kostya's, maybe he's pulling, kind of remembering it or something. But, you think for 11 minutes, you're kind of doing what I do. Anyways, I thought e5, b4, at the minimum, it's giving black some good questions to answer.
Yeah.
And what he did, maybe, but after queen b3, I was like, okay, I think I'd rather be white, And it's the kind of position where I'm sure we look at the computer, both sides will be making loads of mistakes just because it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Queen e7 was a weird move, I guess.
By the way, folks, white couldn't just go knight e5 to win the game here because the knight on c7 is defending the rook on a8. So it ends up
Right.
being a bad trade for white. If you go like this, you're giving up two minor pieces and, you know, the very, very good bishop on g2. So queen b3. Black still can't take b4 at least because of knight e5. Bishop d7, just trying to defend his stuff. Kostya gets castled. Queen e7. Oof, a lemon.
It's a bizarre move, dude. He's like, I mean, I think there's some tactical justification, I think, for it. I mean, it's a weird move.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, now Kostya thinks forever and then plays d4.
Mm-hmm.
And d4 is an interesting move, dude. For one, it's going to allow black to trade queens.
Mm-hmm.
Two, he's got some kind of interesting ideas on ed. I'm not exactly sure what they are, but he's got some interesting ideas on ed.
If I were to guess, on ed, white would play knight d5.
That would be my guess too, right?
Knight d5, queen d5. And basically he's just trying to make knight d4 possible by playing d4 before trading the knights.
Mm-hmm. Now black is kind of being a madman with this queen e7, you know, like on bishop a3 is the idea to play a5. What does he want with me, man?
It's a good question. What does he want?
Now, arguably bishop a3 is misplaced, and then you just play g6. Maybe that could be a thought.
Yeah, you could also just leave the bishop on a3, right? You don't have to attack right into the awkward piece. I mean, Kostya's d4 looks correct.
Okay, so the issue is, like, if I get these positions, the KGB will yell at me. It'll be like, you exchanged queens? What is wrong with you? You know, give me that whole thing. And I get it. This is a position we definitely don't want to exchange queens. So poop, 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 knight a2. What a mess.
Knight d4, knight d7. Castles.
Castles, holy moly.
Yeah. Hanging together by a thread.
So this guy, there's some suspicious moves he's making, but he has tactical chops. Like a lot of these, 2,000 players now.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I was Kostya, by the way, I wouldn't know what's going on here. And I would be a little pissed that I hadn't punished him harder than he got.
Yeah. By the way, this guy Kostya's playing, he upset 2400s in the first two rounds, and he's just been paired up every single round.
Mm-hmm.
So even though that queen e7 move looked like the move of an absolute chump,
yeah,
he might be very dangerous of a player. And it looks like maybe Singapore Federation, huh? Singapore.
And he calculated out 16 castles. Now, the good news for our boy is he has got a significant time advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure castling queenside's better than sacking in exchange, but okay, fancy move. And then Kostya takes on a7. I mean, my instinct is that Kostya's position is amazing. Bishop c5, going for some activity, doubling up rooks. Seems like a matter of time before Kostya checkmates.
Now, I'm not sure I get rook HD8. Do you get rook HD8? Like, why? What's the intention with rook HD8?
Move a lot of pieces near your king and hope he doesn't get checkmated because you have no actual way to defend him.
Well, to me, it's like maybe black's alive. Okay, I would say if I was white, right, I would be like, okay, maybe I'm a little worried about B4, B3.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
David, did you feed Cappuccino
Uh, yes,
breakfast? Okay.
but I didn't yet take her out, so
I know. I put her in the yard because she seemed
she can
kind
go
of
in the
hurt,
yard, right?
and then she ate her,
Yeah.
and then I'm mad at her. I'll probably try to walk her now. You're streaming, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I think that's after. Oh, did you talk to Petty at all yesterday about today?
No.
So I'll text him for the schedule because I think the afternoon we might be a little freer. We don't have any after school activities today. Swimming.
I've got a doctor's appointment.
At 2 and swimming. Yeah. But for Petty, we should try to,
Yeah, if there's something he wants to
like
do, we can see
if Lily comes home early and Zephyr wants to play or something, like we could.
Oh yeah, okay, right, Zephyr.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I should be the one to take so you can hang out with him.
well, Kostya's away, you guys. I will say that
Look at my schedule and figure it out. Thank you.
if I was black, I would want something kind of special here because otherwise it looks poor. In particular, the black king has real problems with the bishop on G2. So, David, I was just saying, like, he played bishop F4, which I think is the most ambitious.
Yeah. That's also the most obvious / logical move, right? My first move.
I want to try to defend his honor for a second, the black honor.
Okay. By the way, Jesse, we have a comment from Frugster in chat saying perhaps rook hd8 was played partly so that Kostya won't have a tactic like e3, knight on d4 moves, knight takes b5, knight takes b5, rook a8 check, and you win a rook on h8.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, because what I'm just saying is, if the reason I would have really thought is black is if I don't have a dynamic way of doing something to white, then the long-term trend looks pretty bad for me, I think.
Yes, I agree.
So one thing, for example, is E3 is going to arrive someday on the board, and that's going to shut down the bishop on C5. The bishop on G2 is amazing. The rook on F1 is ready to go to C1, B1, or A1. All those look like cool squares.
Yeah.
But okay, I want to defend. Let me just see if I can defend black's honor, because I think the main question, if I was white now, would be, well, could I play knight 5 E6 after bishop F4?
Mm-hmm.
And you got a couple moves that you can try.
Yeah. And chat, basically, it's very important to see what Jesse's instinct would be of what to try and do here as black. Is basically you want to somehow have the black pieces come to grips with the white pieces for some kind of confrontation that is going to lead to pieces getting traded, basically. You just start some kind of fight. There's maybe not something obvious over which to start the fight, but you just try to fight something around the positions of the pieces. And if you can trade one or two pieces, then it's not 100% guaranteed the king will get checkmated once the rook on f1 gets out.
Right.
So knight e6. Now, to me, obvious move numero uno is rook c1. And obvious move numero dos is bishop c6. And number 3 is knight takes b5. Knight takes b5 might simply fail to knight f4, but then knight c7, knight e2, rook e2, king c7. Well, let's just calculate the straightforward line first, Jesse, just to get it out of the way. So knight b5.
Show him knight takes b5 first.
Yeah. Right. So okay, black can't take it at the moment because of this.
So, but knight f4.
So knight f4 is logical. And now black is threatening the knight on b5. So I was going to offload it on c7. And I played knight e2 check first last time, but there's knight g2. That's fine for black.
Yeah, knight g2 looks fine.
Knight g2, knight a6, and maybe
at the minimum, I shouldn't. This is not what white wants.
Yeah, it's not what it wants. Perhaps black can draw with knight e3, knight c5, knight f1 or something. No, knight e3, rook c1.
Let's try your rook c1, David. So knight e6 and then rook c1. That looks, at least it feels like a heart attack for me.
Okay, so we're going to play rook c1.
Okay, but all right. So first question has got to be knight takes f4.
Yeah. G.
G takes f4. Oh, now it's a little, it's more than a little spicy.
Yeah. So white's being very simple, folks. They're just saying opposite colored bishops is still good enough and develop the rook. Black's hope is probably rook d1 to diffuse the rage of the guy on c1. So maybe
in fact, don't I just get to play b4
so
after
maybe we should
b4?
look at b4 first. And then I guess knight d5 is the idea for white. Any other knight move, black has rook d1 check, and then white's not doing anything.
Okay, but knight d5, I just take it with the rook, right?
With the rook, yep. Bishop takes. Rook takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rook a5.
Holy moly. Bishop takes f2, boss.
Ay, ay, ay. All right, let's try e4 instead.
All right, let's just do the nasty rook h5 for a second and see what happens. Can you e5 me?
Looks like I got to move one of these pawns again. Let's go.
Oh, e5, I just moved the bishop.
E5, bishop b6. Looks like you're okay.
Yeah.
All right. So no rook c1.
All right. So, my friends, this is the kind of thing where bishop f4 is definitely the intuitive move. And then really, to my mind as black, you really just need to figure out one move, I think, and that's knight 5 e6.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have an answer. Okay, David, let me try bishop e5.
On this move here for white?
Yeah, and so the idea is if you go f6, then I'm going to claim that bishop c7 is winning because of a bishop h3 biznats. Is it true? I don't. We're gonna find out.
Looks pretty reasonable.
Maybe bishop d6 then would be a good move. That might be a reason.
Bishop e5, bishop d6. Tradovich, and if rook c1, still b4?
Or I might be able to play king d7. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. King d7, rook a7, king e8. Yeah.
Let me just stress you guys. This guy's got 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Kostya won a game in time pressure earlier on where he had, it was just a mess of a game, but he did win it in time pressure. And this guy will be because as long as I feel like this is the kind of position that even if we don't find anything amazing for white, he should be able to find a way to keep it going and going. Do you see another? If you were Black, David, is there any other moves this guy we feel like he might do?
Oh, other than 96 here? Um, immediate B4, there would be what, 94?
94 looks bothersome. I think that might be what he's thinking about.
Bishop B4 was what he was thinking about.
Yeah, this dude, this shows like he is some kid. He's some kid. He's not thinking about positional stuff at all. He's just like, I'm gonna calculate this bad boy to the end.
Uh-huh. So what is the plan against Rook C1?
Well, White has several moves. Like, okay, Rook C1, yes.
Here's my line. Rook C1,
Mm-hmm.
Bishop C3, Rook C3. Okay, the pawn on E2 seems to be defended. So
Mm-hmm.
knight E2 doesn't work. King to B8, getting off the C file. Rook A8 anyway. That's it.
Okay, wait, David, but look, Vision B4 looks totally wrong, but we know that this guy has weird tactical ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe his ideas on Rook C1, he wants to try to mess with you with Knight B3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking the same. Hi, yi, yi, yi. I want to give some kind of like insane smothered mate, Jesse, you know, like Rook A8 check, Knight takes A8, Knight B5 check, Knight C1, Knight A7 mate. But the Rook will cover it. You can ask any questions you like, Frogster. And Viral Stigma, yes, it turned out that game we watched in round 1 was not Kostya's game.
What's the name of his game, dude?
Now we've all studied a game of Kostak. Not Kostya, but Kostak.
Yeah.
So if you ever bump into Kostak, you can tell them, like, I saw this very interesting double king pawn you played a while back in Grenke.
Yeah, we got questions maybe about Kostya's journey as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say it's a rough journey at this point, man. It's a rough journey. A lot of the journey actually is, to my mind, very unromantic. And you see it in a game like this, where it's very hard to beat this guy who has no positional understanding but has all these tricks. And if you beat him, you get like 1 rating point. If you lose or draw, you lose rating points. So and if you don't beat him, I think this is the last round, but just in general, you have to beat this guy so that you can play the better players in the later rounds. And so the process of getting the rating up and the GM norm is like consistently beating chumps like this guy who are tactically talented, obviously, but have no positional understanding of the game.
And in other rounds, you play other chumps who do have positional understanding of the game. It all depends. You know, you gotta beat all kinds of good people with different kinds of skills along the way. I think I found an answer to Knight B3, Jesse.
Okay.
And Kostya has just played Rook C1.
Okay.
So I imagine he's calculated this line as well. Knight B3, Knight D5, Knight C1, Knight B6. Forcing the king onto B8, pinning that knight. This time I forced it instead of just fantasy variationing it.
Uh-huh, that's nice.
And I had to check Rook takes D5, right? And then if I take on D5, it's a mess. But I have just Rook C7. And there's nothing messy about that. Well, except, you know, the splatter of black's blood on the board.
A splatter of black's blood. Okay, let's look at this for a second.
Dude was ready for rook c1 and played knight b3 immediately. Jesus! It's going to be a 22-move game. The dude, you said he was good at calculating. Dude didn't calculate anything, Jesse.
Okay, let's slow it down for a second.
Hey, what you looking?
Wait, okay, boss, but okay, wait. Maybe is it just? I'm just looking if it's truly as over as it seems.
Doesn't rook a8 also work? I don't think so, Master Toaster. That's what I wanted to make work first. Rook
Okay,
a8,
let me just
knight a8.
wait. And how about knight d5, bishop a5?
Oh, in the live position? Knight d5, bishop a5?
Yeah.
Rook a5? Welcome to the dojo.
Knight a5.
Okay, I've got 6 different winning moves here. Let's start with bishop c7.
6 of them.
I'll start with the prettier one for you. Knight b6.
No, bishop c7 is good enough.
I know.
Knight
b6 is prettier.
So knight b3, knight d5.
Kostya played knight d5 quickly, dog. He didn't like not see knight b3 coming. He found this in advance. That's the end.
All right, let's try bishop c5.
Sweet, sweet knight d5. Okay, rook takes c5.
That's terrible. All right. Maybe he's going to finally. We were talking about how hard it was to beat these chumps, but ultimately, the moves bishop b4 and then knight b3. I think it's got to be called impulsive, right? Because, dude, you're going to have to look a little deeper. It looks because your position looks like trash, dude.
I mean, I don't know what to say. The guy spent all his time. This was maybe just the limits of his skills in this case.
The limits.
Sometimes you bump into those, you know.
Yeah, I think he's cooked, dude.
Yeah. Hey, what you looking? I've never been to India. Jesse, have you played in India?
No, man. I've been invited by that Shagar Shah dude. Even though now Shagar Shah is so busy, he won't answer my emails. All right, bishop d6.
So yeah,
knight d6 is the default answer. That's the default winning move because you're just going to win the exchange. There might be something stronger.
Yeah, so what you looking? We have no plans to go to India right now. I would love to. I would truly love to. But it doesn't look like it's in my cards right now.
No, this is just Crispies.
I would say, Jesse, the easiest line to my eye is knight b6 check, king b8, knight takes d7, rook takes d7, rook d1.
I mean, honestly, it's just winning after knight takes d7, so I just kind of stopped there. I just kind of stopped. All right, he played rook a8. Kostya, he don't play. Rook a8 is in fact stronger. That's just reflex.
Oh, this guy's just asking the website, can you be part of the program you want to buy the membership? Well, yeah, that's been available in India forever. I mean, all you need to do is get on the internet, and from what you're doing on YouTube, it seems like you are. So I don't see any obstacle. In fact, in January or February this year, we reduced the price in India based on cost of living. So you can not only get it, you can get it for like, I don't know, 40% or 30% or something of the normal price.
We had a good deal.
Something nice.
Well, this is Crispies, bud. That was good.
It is very Crispies. Kostya played rook a8 check.
Yeah,
King b7, knight takes knight check from the bishop. Oh god. Oh god, Kostya.
Yep. I'm gonna ask you, boss. Now, I have a little bit of confusion actually, David. So on my chess.com site, it says 3.5 out of 6.
Yeah.
But hasn't there actually been more rounds than that?
There have been 9 rounds, but 3 of them didn't get broadcast. And if they didn't get broadcast,
Oh, I see. Got it.
like if your game doesn't show up, then it doesn't know.
Well, it's saying he won, dude. It's on your board on the Twitch screen. It's saying he won. Let me refresh my screen.
Yeah, I mean it's a checkmate on the board, so
Boom. Okay, that was cool.